Hello and welcome to my review of the Forest Sherman. Actually, my first review on this platform. First of all, on a small note, I am not the best player of the game. At best, I am slightly above average, and I am aware of that. So please take all my advice, rating, and opinions with a grain of salt. So let's come to the actual review of the Forest Sherman. The Forest Sherman, or as I will call it from now on, just the Sherman, is a United States destroyer, but not a conventional one. It centers mostly around its guns, putting it in line with a small family of gunboats which it shares with ships like the Friesland or the Groningen. The ship is currently available for 232,000 coal, and also in the heavy firepower container. But if you plan on getting this ship, I would recommend the coal option, as the drop chance in the container is quite low. The Sherman is a Tier 10 destroyer with a base hit pool of almost 25 kHp. It has three 127mm guns, one in the front and two in the back. They all can turn 360 degrees and have quite good angles. The base reload of the guns are 2 seconds, giving the guns a comfortable feel due to its access to SAP, a mixture of AP and HE, giving it an effective damage output per minute of 81,000. The torpedoes are something. The ship has access to 4 single-launch torpedoes that are identical to the improved torpedoes of the Gearing, except a shorter reload. They have a range of 16.5 kilometers and are fairly quick and stealthy, with a damage of 17.9 thousand. The issues these torpedoes have are the angles, as they are quite limited to say the least. They have barely any way to move, resulting in angles that make them quite hard to use. I had, by the time of making the video, no chance of using the depth charges, so I cannot comment on them, besides saying that they look quite potent on the surface, comparable to those of the Daring, the only difference being the damage of the charges. The AA has a continuous damage of 152 per second, with 4 explosions per salvo. The AA has a base range of 6 kilometers, and the ship has access to defensive AA. The base speed of the ship is 33.9 knots, making it quite slow, with a rudder shift time of 5.3 seconds, making the ship rather slow and slightly sluggish. The concealment of the ship is subpar, with an 8.3 kilometer base, resulting in a concealment of 6.5 kilometers with all modules and camouflage applied, meaning most DDs will outspot the Sherman. The consumables of the ship are a standard DCP, American Smoke, Hydroacoustic Search with a range of 5 kilometers, and defensive AA. Let's begin with the Sherman's strengths. So, of course we have the guns, as they basically make the ship viable at all. They got a really comfortable feel, with good arcs, nice turn rates, and a massive damage output, causing the ship to outgun most DDs with relative ease. Another plus is the HP pool, which is quite large, giving the ship the ability to withstand a good amount of punishment. Also, the AA is a fairly good defensive tool. While not making you completely invulnerable to planes, you can still punish a bad CV quite much while your defensive fire is up. The combination of Hydro and Smoke also gives the ship the capability of contesting caps well, as it not only shields the DD from incoming torpedoes, but also forces the enemy to stay at a distance to not get spotted by the Hydro and shoot up by your guns quite quickly. This leaves the ship quite confident in the capping game, as well as ambushing other DDs, but due to the enhanced penetration that SAP provides, which is 36mm, you can also farm a lot of ships, most cruisers and many battleships, for example the French battleships, as they are coated in 32mm armor, making them quite vulnerable to the SAP of the Sherman. The weaknesses of the Sherman. Let's come to the most glaring weakness of the Sherman, which is, of course, the torpedo armament. While not being completely bad, the low volume of torps, combined with the completely atrocious angles, make the torpedoes a big weakness. While the armament itself is fine and can cripple a BB, they still lack the volume to completely disable them, causing them to fail as a safeguard in your smokes from a rushing battleship. Also, the weird and lackluster angles make them hard to use, so more often than not you feel forced to turn into a weird position to get a chance at striking the enemy with them, also hampering the ship overall. So I would advise you to more use them as a nice add-on and not stop shooting to get them off if you have a nice target to farm. Unless, of course, you need them to save you from a sticky situation or to protect you, I would say their uses are limited at best. The other major weakness I would assign to the ship is the overall handling. For a DD, the speed is bad, the rudder shift is lackluster, and the turning circle leaves a lot to be desired. This makes it quite hard to pursue fleeing enemies or to dodge torpedoes when your Hydro is inactive, leaving you dependent on it if you want to use your smokes for farming. I would add that the subpar maneuverability makes it hard to get out of a sticky situation, punishing mistakes quite hard, especially if raiders are involved, as you lack the speed to quickly get away or the handling to easily dodge, often leaving you with more damage taken than other more quick or nimble destroyers. Also, while not a major weakness, the concealment still holds the ship back, forcing you to stay careful, because most DDs will outspot you, meaning that to get a jump on them you need to use either island cover or your Hydro and smoke in combination, so you can still force the enemy into a gunfight which you can win. Also, the smoke firing penalty is around 3.1 kilometers, which is not terrible, but still can mess up your play if you are getting rushed by a stronger ship. So, how should you build your ship? Well, obviously, as your guns are your main armament, you should build it accordingly. I will have a picture of my recommended upgrades on the screen, so feel free to take a screenshot or just pause the video. I also want to mention that the special hydroacoustic module for 17,000 coal can be good in the second slot, as it aligns the time your hydro is up with your smoke. But in my opinion, it's more a nice to have than a must have. For a captain build, you will have my build on screen again, so feel free to again take a screenshot. Even though it is possible to swap Concealment Expert for Fearless Brawler, I would personally not recommend it, as without Concealment Expert, cap contesting will become anything but impossible. This will weaken your influence in the game, and in my opinion it's not worth 10% better reload. You can also swap out consumable enhancements for priority target, but I personally don't need priority target. But if you feel more comfortable with it, it is definitely a valid skill to pick. I would also recommend Halsey if you have him, as his talents are a very good fit with your skill set, as you can lower your reload even more if you get a Confederate, which is not too hard on this ship. Also, a double strike will improve your concealment, bringing it down to around 5.9 kilometers, which would be quite good if there are any DDs left to hunt. So, in the beginning I asked, what is the Sherman? That's a fairly good, but hard to answer question. Basically, it is a DD, but it really isn't. It has many tools that are standard for DDs, but also some normal DD-esque features that are missing, for example usable torpedoes, while also having some tools that are more used on cruisers, as for example the Hydro. This leaves the Sherman in quite an interesting spot. It is closer to a DD than a cruiser, but still can't fully fulfill any of those roles, leaving it between the seats. This makes the ship a bit more challenging to play for inexperienced players or those who only play one particular style of ships. But for more seasoned players, the ship can definitely bring a lot of fun and diversity as it fills a niche that little to no ships can fully fulfill, making it a good addition to your port if you are interested in this kind of playstyle. So, this was my review of the Sherman. I hope you enjoyed it and got some useful information out of it. If you liked the video, please feel free to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Also, if you got some ideas how I could improve the videos, feel free to post them in the comments. And I am planning to post more videos like these on more ships that are available for in-game resources or for money, and maybe if the general interest is there for some special tech tree ships as well, but I have to see how I can do that, if I just review one ship alone or the entire tech tree. But this is still in the planning and in the future. Also, if you got any ships you want reviewed that I own, feel free to ask me. If I do own the ships, I will put them on a list and try to make a review out of it if I feel comfortable in the ship, or if I can play it well enough so I can try to make my own opinion on them. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope I see you in the next one.